Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of T.W.E.T. I'm back here with Rooster and with Leechy. Leechy is half asleep, so we'll hopefully get enough out of him. I doubt it, though.
Yeah, we won't.
He's also got a new headset, so he sounds a little bit off. Just in case you've watched the previous episodes and he's come through, and yeah, he's got a much deeper voice now than I think I was expecting.
He's ever had in his whole life.
Yeah. So yeah, you'll just have to get used to that. So the format of today's one is going to be quite similar to last episode, in which it's going to be focused a little bit more around news. But we are completely missing out Rooster's Salt Corner today, unless there is anything that he wants to, go a bit crazy about, which I'm sure something will pop up.
Something might, but as of yet, we're okay.
Fingers crossed. We'll never know. But yeah, there's been a lot going on in terms of delay news, and of course, because I'm such a big Star Citizen fan, there's quite a bit of news about Star Citizen and what's been happening over January, what's coming for February, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to go through all of that before we kind of go forward. So we were kind of discussing yesterday on our Facebook chat about what we want to discuss today, and I talked about Dying Light 2 being delayed, in which Leechy responded he had no idea that it was delayed. So, and out of anybody here, I would have thought you'd be the first on that kind of delay. So yeah, it's been delayed indefinitely. What the company...
That's bad.
It is bad, but I understand the reasons why. So the company officially sent out kind of like a small newsletter on their Twitter feed to say that it was going to be delayed indefinitely because they were not ready to release it at all. They are going for what they deem to be it's like a narrative sandbox. So whatever actions and decisions you make in the game will have a massive effect on the world around you, which I know like kind of games do anyway, but this will have
a lot of games
effect.
claim to do.
Well, yeah.
They actually want to be one of the first games to properly achieve that, and that I think has turned out to be a bit more of a daunting task than they thought.
Yeah.
It is incredibly difficult to do that. It's why so many games boast like, "Oh, your decisions make such a big difference," and then you realize they really don't. They make a very minimal difference. It's all just like stat boosting, so you can get one of 3 or 4 endings and stuff like that. It doesn't actually really impact the world properly like they want to do. So yeah, they've sort of realized that there's a lot more work that needs to go into that. That needs to go into their AI and their sort of world building and how the choices are going to affect those. So yeah.
It's a good thing. Like we said in the last one, delays are not a bad thing, especially if you're trying to achieve this massive game, or you're trying something a bit different, or anything along those lines.
The issue I have with a delay indefinitely is they quite often end up being cancelled projects.
Yeah, that's like Dead Island 2.
Yeah.
We're still waiting.
I mean, yeah, Dead Island 2 is still technically delayed indefinitely. I believe that game was supposed to come out like 6 years ago now.
I don't think that's going to be the case for this game, for Dying Light 2.
We can only hope.
Yeah.
The only thing that sort of gets me with the Dying Light series, I played the first one. I only actually finished it more recently, within the last year. And overall, pretty good game. The combat is really satisfying, and you get to drop kick zombies, which is great. But the ending fucking sucked. It was the only QuickTime event in the entire game, and it was the ending fight. The fight you have with the big bad boss man at the end of the game is a QuickTime event.
Wow.
And I was like, what the fuck did I just waste all this time playing through the story for?
Mm.
And
to hit a button when you were told to.
Yeah, exactly. Like every other fucking like, it's the only QuickTime event.
I,
There aren't any others.
I think we've just reached Lychee salt corner.
It just really fucking triggered me.
I'm not surprised. You invested like Dying Light isn't exactly the quickest game. It's quite lengthy and there's a lot to do in it. So to get a quick time event ending is shit if it's not been
Yeah.
quick time events the whole way through. Like if you take the likes of like the Tomb Raider series, they've got quite a lot of quick time events in them to push the narrative and so on and get you to certain locations. But so you can kind of understand that if it's towards the end, but not a game like Dying Light. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I think it's things like that I don't think they're aiming to do for Dying Light 2. It would be really interesting to see how they actually, bring to life this sandbox narrative, and if it takes them more time to do it good, I'm all about that. I mean, they were originally planning to release spring 2020, but
Yeah.
now it might not be 2020 they release, but I could easily see it being maybe Q4 2020 or Q1 2021. I think we'll know more information with the months to come, and the best thing for the company at the moment is to just keep the fans up to date, just keep talking and saying, when they're planning to actually release the release date or give more information on the game, because the game itself, I've seen some gameplay, it looks good, and it makes what Dying Light was and makes it better, because Dying Light wasn't the worst game I've ever played. It was actually quite enjoyable. As you said, Leechy, the combat was very satisfying.
Yeah.
And they seem to be building on that, even with down to the parkour. There's a lot more kind of parkour moves now. I think from one clip I saw wall running at one point, which I don't think was in the first game. So it's the same old piece. It's a delay. A delay's good if the company is going for really ambitious sort of, gameplay mechanics and an ambitious narrative. But if it's then released and it's just crap, it's just a waste of time. So with that one, only time will tell. But yeah. So January seems to be the month of delays.
Yep.
We've had Dying Light 2 delayed, Cyberpunk 2077 delayed as well. I know we went into that in the last podcast quite in depth, but I've been watching a little bit more in terms of its gameplay and what it has to offer, and it's really interesting me. A first person sort of near future utopia. It's I'm stepping onto the hype train, boys, and I don't want to. I don't want to. I need to stop kind of watching stuff, but it does look really, really good. And the fact that you create your own character this time, I say this time, this is a completely new game, but you create your own character. And I know how ambitious it is, but even from the gameplay that's been there, it looks fantastic. It's such a shame that it was delayed, but I think with that particular game, a delay will only make it better. Apparently, CD Projekt Red has finished the game. Is what I keep hearing, that they've completely finished the game. What they're doing now are major bug fixes and making sure it's actually smooth and playable.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know how accurate that is, but that has the possibility then for them to say, actually, we'll bring it forward and we'll release it earlier than what we intended. But
yeah.
This delay seems to be, they've built the game, they've got it all there, it's all ready to go, but there's just a lot of bugs, and they need to have it quality checked quite a lot.
Yeah, with such a vast game, it's gonna have lots of bugs. It's gonna be very difficult to, make sure that everything is in pristine condition. Obviously, the larger the game, the more chances there are for really weird and odd sort of bugs and issues and inconsistencies. So it takes a long time to try and make sure that's all working.
Yeah, exactly. And it all depends on who's doing what. If they have a lot of developers working on the same piece, or they have developers working on the first half and then another set of developers working on the second half of the same, like either the narrative or the world. It can become uneven and it just not make a lot of sense. So completely game testing it and making sure it's consistent is so important at the moment in the gaming industry. And you know what, if they take the time to do it, fantastic. Just have to wait and see for that one. But won't go into that one too much because, like I said, we went into it before. Yeah. Final Fantasy VII Remake has also been delayed. That's a game that suffers with consistent delays. I believe it's delayed 3 or 4 times now. Something close to that, and you know it could possibly be delayed once again. Now, I never played the original Final Fantasy VII. For what I've seen in terms of gameplay, and when you compare the original Final Fantasy VII and this remake, it's obviously a massive difference. So there's a lot of work and development that needs to go into the remake of the game, because it's not just a case of, oh, we're just going to make the graphics look a little better. They're completely expanding the world, just freefold from where you can go and actually investigate and do what you want to do, sort of thing. I think the main like city hub that they've made, they've expanded on that quite heavily. I don't know, like I said, I haven't played the first one, but I think that was the main reason for the delays, that the developers were saying that the actual hub that you focused in on or anything like that has been very difficult to make, and that's one of the main reasons for the delay, which it makes sense. I mean, Final Fantasy VII
does make sense.
I mean, how old is it? It's over 15 years old, probably older than that. So you can understand if they're completely remaking a game that, one, was a complete fan favourite and a massive hit back then, and is still considered to be the best Final Fantasy game.
Final Fantasy VII came out in 1997.
1997. I was well off.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Wow, 23 years ago. You remake a game like that, which was considered the best of the franchise, from that long ago, it's going to take... That's a mammoth job. I mean, you look at the best example is the guys who are recreating Oblivion to come into the Skyrim engine.
Ah, yes. I mean, that is good.
That project has taken years and is still not finished now, I think.
Yeah, and that has continuous progress. Like I said, I'm in their Discord. So I see all the updates they're doing all the time, and there's literally several posts a day of what's been done. New assets being designed with help of community members and stuff like that, and areas have been fleshed out and quests have been finished. It's continuous development, and that's been ongoing for several years now, and probably has a couple of years left in it.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see Elder Scrolls 6 before we see the remake of Oblivion.
Yeah, Sky Oblivion.
Which will be an interesting one. I really want to play it, actually. I'd love to see how they recreate it. Are they taking things out the Fallout 4 development as well? You know, like, for example, the looting was so much better in Fallout 4 than what it was Skyrim.
I'm not sure. I haven't seen much about, like, the looting system. But they do have some decent videos out there on their YouTube channel as well of the kind of things that you can expect in the game.
Yeah. Okay. So another delay as well is the Marvel's Avengers game. That was delayed. Oh, excuse me. That was delayed this January. So I don't know if you guys have seen much of that.
I've seen bits of it. Not really the kind of game that sort of appeals to me, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
so I haven't really followed it all that much.
Yeah, I'm very much on the same kind of piece as you guys are. It's not necessarily my kind of game, but a lot of people are excited about it, and you know, the gameplay that they showed was actually really good.
Yeah, it does look like a pretty decent game from the point of view of someone who doesn't really have interest in those styles of games. It does seem like a pretty good game for what it is.
Yeah, and I think with a game like that, especially because it's coming off of the back of the Marvel Cinematic Universe at the moment, which is massively popular. Everybody knows about the Marvel films, and almost everybody's watched at least one, whether or not that's some of the older ones or even these newer ones. It's, you know, it's a very well established franchise overall, so this game needs to be good. For the Marvel fans out there who love that style of gameplay, it has to be good, and I think the developers kind of understand that, and that's why they've delayed that game, because if it's not good, there's going to be some backlash. And it's interesting to see, because I think when I was watching it, the way that they portray the characters, I think is a lot closer to the comic book series. So that could... It's the same with The Witcher. It's a case of you've got so much content before the game, or in terms of the series, there was so much content before the series of The Witcher, that seeing the characters in a different way might not be appealing to a lot of the fans.
Yeah.
So it's, for me, that the delay for that game shows that they understand how important it is because of the franchise, and that really they need to get it right. So it will be interesting to see how it kind of develops, and when it's released, what people are thinking about it. But for me, it's not a game that I'm going to be getting like straight away. I don't think. It's really not on my radar. But another thing that was delayed, which I only found out wasn't too long ago, was there's an Iron Man VR development. Apparently.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know about
Yeah, that, of course, it's been delayed, but I didn't even know it was in the works.
that. Yeah.
Which seems quite interesting. I wonder how that would work and kind of what platforms that would come on, because I've not delved into it all that much. But yeah, that was another recent one that had been delayed, which I think that's going to be another fan favourite as well, especially with VR titles, because there's not all that many like fantastic VR titles from what I'm seeing. You've got the normal like Beat Saber and all of that good stuff, but maybe this is a good point for VR. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think an Iron Man game really, really fits with the VR setting.
Yeah.
And that could be really interesting.
It's how they do it though. Is it going to be a case of like a free roam aspect,
Yeah.
or is it going to be you stand just in one location and then you move from point to point to point, which a couple of VR games like that can be.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to see how that's going to work, and you know, maybe they're trying to do something more, and that's the reason for the delay. That will be an interesting one. So yeah. So at the moment, they seem to be the most kind of like known about delay games so far. January hasn't been great for game development, and all those waiting. Of course, there's also the case of Doom has been delayed.
Yep.
Which I know there are a lot of people who are
Saddened by this.
Yeah, they're looking forward to Doom. As you said, Leechy, I think in the last episode, your brother was really looking forward to playing the new Doom game.
Yeah.
And
he just
gutted.
like I don't think he cares much for whatever the story is. He just likes to punch hell demons in the face.
He is Doom guy.
yeah. I mean, that's what that game is. It's not necessarily about narrative for that
Exactly.
game. It's how good it looks and how fun it is, and just like its pace. It's so quick, and it gets your adrenaline going. So you know, Doom was a fantastic game. I mean, it looks stunning. Doom 2016. It looks really, really good.
Yeah.
And the fact that Xbox brought it to the Game Pass, I think it brought a lot of people on side to it as well. That was the first time I played it, was thanks to the Game Pass, and you know, I didn't dislike it at all. I thought it was a fantastic game. But it's hard to bring an element from a game that's 20 to 30 years old and expand on it to that as good as it was, because it felt like the original Doom games, but you know, with better technology, which I think a lot of remade games kind of fail at, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to capture that original kind of aspect and essence of those kind of games, and for me, Doom did that. It did that very well. But anyway, that's in terms of delays. That's everything I more or less know. Is there anything else that you guys are aware of, or anything else you wanted to elaborate on in terms of what we've just talked about?
No, you pretty much summed it up. To be honest, a couple of things in there that I didn't know about. I mean, the Iron Man game I didn't even know was in the works, let alone being delayed.
Me neither.
Obviously, we covered Doom and 2077
Cyberpunk.
last week,
Yeah.
and yeah, just the Dying Light one. Hopefully, we don't. It doesn't end up in development hell.
Yeah.
It's possible that they've made the choice to delay because they realise, look, we can't make our deadline, but they just at the minute they just don't know when they can. But for all we know, once they've made a month or two's progress, they might go, well, hang on a minute, actually, we can have it out by the end of the year. So whilst it's indefinite at the moment, maybe in a couple of months they'll actually go, well,
Yeah, I think that's what they're getting to. So their post on their Twitter feed says like they're focusing for the next couple of months, and then there'll be more news about the release date in the next couple of months. So whilst they have said indefinitely, I think you've pretty much summed it up perfectly, Leechy. They're getting to a point where they're seeing where they are in terms of their development phase. There's probably something that's completely breaking the game down. So as you said in the last podcast, Rooster, it could be something in the engine that is completely broken, and they just are really struggling to fix it, or from a narrative perspective they can't really make it as consistent as they'd like to, hence why it's indefinitely delayed, because it could be a case of maybe they've got to strip all of that out and then replace it with something, or they just need to focus on how long those repairs to maybe the engine would take. We don't know. We're not part of the development team. We're not there. We don't know any of the developers. But there's so many different things that could be delaying that game. I don't think it's going to fall into development hell. Personally, I think we'll have a better understanding of exactly what's going on in the coming months, and I could see the game being released late this year, early next year. It depends on what exactly is breaking it. So yeah. Okay, I'm going to move on to the really exciting part now, and that's the lawsuit between Crytek and CIG.
Yes.
So anybody who doesn't know and isn't aware, Crytek are suing CIG, the creators of Star Citizen, based on basically the engine and their single-player experience, Squadron 42. So originally, when Star Citizen was being created, they made a deal with Crytek to use the Crytek engine to build Star Citizen. Their game license agreement only really covered one game, which was Star Citizen itself. Because of course Crytek have been going downhill for years and years and years, so they sold their engine off to Amazon, in which Amazon have the Lumberyard engine, which is more or less like the Crytek engine. I think it's like a modified version of it. But at the end of the day, Crytek sold all the rights to Amazon. At that point, CIG made a deal with Amazon and moved over to the Lumberyard engine. So Crytek, after selling this engine anyway, are trying to sue CIG on the grounds that CIG broke the game license agreement with them because they're building Squadron 42. Although they've sold the engine to Amazon, and Amazon have given CIG full rights to the Crytek engine. And Crytek's entire case is more or less revolved around the fact that they never actually moved to the Lumberyard engine, although Crytek...
There's a big thing that says Lumberyard as you load the game.
Yeah, exactly. But because there's coding from Crytek engine in the game currently, that's what they're kind of suing their grounds on. But yeah, so no one can really understand where Crytek is coming from this perspective, because
money.
Yeah, of course, that's the only thing.
That's it. They're just trying anything they can at this point,
and it's a bit crazy. It's ridiculous. So they came in with all these different pieces to take them to court with. They dismissed like 95% of their own case and have just boiled it down to Squadron 42 their single player experience breaking the game license agreement, more or less. And Squadron 42 isn't even out yet. It's not even been released. So Crytek and the Crytek lawyers want to dismiss this case without prejudice because the case has not yet ripened. Basically, they want to stop the proceedings in court because Squadron 42 hasn't been released yet. And they want to bring it back to court when Squadron 42 is released. Of course, CIG are saying, no, we want this case to be dismissed with prejudice to say that you can no longer come back to court. And it was
just fair and understandable in my opinion. At the end of the day, if you've realised you don't have a leg to stand on and you want to try and dismiss the case, then then you have failed. You can't say, we want to come back at a later date when we've got more of a chance of winning.
Yeah, exactly. You
took them to court in the first place. You should have been sure about your lawsuit in the first place.
And that's completely it. And there was a lot of colourful language used within the last meeting at court by the CIG lawyers.
I'm sure there was.
I'm paraphrasing. This is not exactly what they said, but it's quite along those lines. So they told the court, Crytek can't sit in front of our store window, put their foot on the gas, drive a car straight into it, crash through the window, do donuts around the store, and then back out and leave to potentially go back in again.
Yeah.
It's not exactly what they were using. It's paraphrasing, but they're basically saying you can't just come in, make all of this mess, try to back out to then probably come back again. That's not fair because most of their case has already been dismissed, and now they're trying to dismiss the last piece of the case to return it.
Yeah.
But they don't have a leg to stand on. At the end of the day, if you've sold your engine to another company, then the game license agreement surely is void because you're CIG
no longer the owner of the engine.
Yeah,
you don't hold the rights over it anymore. You sold the rights away to someone else.
So I don't understand where they're coming from, and I get it. A lawyer's job is to make sure that they get the most for their clients. So I understand it, but surely the law firm has had to have said to them, look, you're not going to win. You're not going to get anything out. This is the best chance we've got. And even then, it's a slim chance because the decision's going to be made on the 7th of February. So that's in a week's time on whether or not the case is going to be dismissed with or without prejudice. Personally, I think it should be with prejudice, but I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand, of course, exactly what's going on in the proceedings. A lot of the information is redacted out of the court case itself, but I can't see Crytek actually winning anything at all, and I think they're going to have to really pay out for CIG's legal fees, which is going to come at quite a big cost to those that are still there at Crytek. It's not going very well for them. If you guys are interested a little bit more in terms of what's going on with the court case itself, then I would suggest going to the YouTuber Board Gamer. He's got a couple of videos on the court case. I'll leave the link below in the description, and you guys can have a look at some of his videos to do with this court case and Star Citizen in general. That's going to be quite an interesting one to see. And next week, or the week after, because it will be late next week, I'll most probably be going on about the decision itself. So we'll wait and see. Anything from you guys in terms of the court case itself? I know you guys haven't been looking into it at all, but
just that it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
to be honest,
like a dum-dum.
Yeah.
Last time I saw a case so ridiculous, it was for the word scrolls.
Yeah. Yes, that is very true. These are in the same vein. You can't call your game that. It has the word scrolls in it.
That's ridiculous.
We have copyrighted the term scrolls forever.
Wasn't there another one to do with Elder Scrolls for Redfall?
Ah, right. So yeah, the Redfall one at the moment that has actually been resolved. pleasantly, apparently. So the Bethesda have had ZeniMax have had a Redfall trademark for a while. It's been going through the general trademark sort of processes until there was a trademark dispute by an author who's published through Amazon, who has a book series Redfall, and has had a book series called Redfall before Bethesda made the Redfall trademark. So that was disputed through worries that this game, whatever game, the common sort of hypothesis at the moment is that Redfall is going to be the next Elder Scrolls game. But that's not necessarily guaranteed. It could be Starfield DLC for all we know.
Yeah.
But people primarily think it's Elder Scrolls 6 Redfall. Because they've really fought for it. They really didn't want to drop that name. So he was worried that the popularity of a game by Bethesda would completely outshadow searches for his book. The funny thing is, this whole dispute and everything has actually been brilliant for him, because book sales have skyrocketed for his book since this sort of trademark dispute. But it took a little while. They had a couple of meetings, there was a couple of disputes, and eventually they haven't really given details of what their agreement is, but they have basically stated that an agreement has been made between the book author and ZeniMax Media that is mutually beneficial to them, and they are being allowed to keep the trademark Redfall.
That's good. To be honest, that kind of goes with everything that's going on at the moment and anything that's popular. So you talk about, because of this case, the book sales have increased. If you look at the currently ongoings in terms of coronavirus, the game Plague is massively selling out at the moment.
In China as well.
In China, yeah.
Might I add?
It's massively popular out there.
Yeah, Plague Inc. is currently absolutely booming in China. So it just goes to show that, things spark interest and people like to follow a trend. Something big happens and it makes them think of games, and then they want to, or books or anything, and they want to go and buy them.
Yeah. And
so yeah,
great for the game company, because I'm pretty sure they're a very small indie company, but not great for China at the moment.
With the Redfall trademark and the Redfall books, I haven't read it, but apparently it is a surprisingly good book. It is a very good book. It's a post-apocalyptic. I think that's where a lot of people saw the irony. Redfall is supposed to be a Elder Scrolls trademark, as we believe, and the book is a lot more Fallout. Because it's a post-apocalyptic book, but supposed to be very, very good. So if people are only just hearing about this, then feel free to go and check it out.
There you go. So from kind of like that court case with Star Citizen, I wanted to go into Star Citizen a little bit deeper in terms of its roadmap. So those that aren't aware of Star Citizen,
lots of things have been removed.
Yeah, it's they have a short-term roadmap for like the next 2 quarters, in which there are cards on there.
Memory loss by the sound of things.
Say that again.
Short-term memory loss by the sound of things.
When you hear all the stuff that's been removed, then yeah, I will massively agree with you. So it's a short-term development cycle for the next 2 quarters that they do. They put cards up there on what they're developing, and then they put statuses of like how many steps in they are of it being completed, etc. And there were a lot of things within the next 2 patches that everybody was really excited for, but they have subsequently been removed now, which sucks. It is really, really sucks. So I've got a couple of them here. So I mean, within the last couple of podcasts, I've mentioned the accounting app as being something that people really want to be able to do player-to-player transactions, and it's been removed off the roadmap completely. It's just not there anymore on the roadmap, which is very, very annoying. Saying that their actual statement for this is, following discussions, the decision was made to temporarily remove the card from the roadmap until a new target date is decided upon.
So it's not removed completely. like zombies from Daisy when they wanted to fix them walking through walls.
Yeah.
But nah, so it is removed for the intention of being worked on again in the future. It's just not something they're working on now.
Yeah. So all of these removals are temporary.
Right. Okay. I
Um,
thought they were like just removed. Like, yeah, no, we don't want to do those anymore. They're not coming now.
no. So all of these things will still be in the game because there's a couple of ships and
Eventually.
stuff, but it's just that people. The problem with doing the short-term development piece is if you don't stick to that, people get excited about certain things, and then when
Yeah,
they
it's
get
why companies
removed
don't like doing it because obviously internally a lot of decisions are put forward and removed and
Yeah.
things are switched up all the time internally. The problem is as soon as you start putting that information out there for the public to see, when you make changes to it, the public don't like that. Whereas what they don't realize is that this stuff happens all the time internally. You just don't see it.
Yeah.
You don't know how many features are supposed to be in games that eventually don't end up being a part of a game. Almost every major game we've ever played at some point had features that were going to be in the game that never made it.
And yeah, I think
But
with this development, if it's on the short-term roadmap, it will be developed.
yeah, oh yeah, but I
But
think people
it's
shouldn't be too disheartened when something can't make it because there's obviously a reason they've removed it from the short-term roadmap. Maybe a bigger thing they were working on has
we,
proven to be a lot more time consuming, and so they don't have time to do everything on there. So they've removed some stuff to make sure the bigger things are done.
there are things that in that kind of aspect I definitely agree with you on. The problem with this is they've removed a lot, but they've not added too much as well.
Yeah, but
And
they're not
these
going to add too much if the removals
no true.
are to make time for things that are proving more problematic than they initially thought. If you've got, let's say, 10 features and each of them was supposed to take, like, let's just say a month each, and then one of them ends up taking 3 months, well, you, you better hope some of the other things end up being quicker or remove some.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. That I'm disappointed purely on the basis that there's so much here that has been removed that would make the game
Oh yeah, it's definitely
incredibly
disappointing.
better. So much better. And I'm glad these things are going to be coming, but I understand why. And I think with the massive delays this year, because January CIG always kind of like sit down and they have a meeting to see what their priorities are going to be for the following 12 months. And unfortunately, these didn't make the cut for the first two quarters. And it is such a shame. And I think the reason that they're doing it is so that they can focus on their core tech, because a lot of these cards for their short-term development are revolving around some really important tech that needs to be in the game that they're improving and evolving into now. So in the cases of, at the moment, in terms of Multicrew, there's kind of a skeleton system of Multicrew. You can have people on the same ship, they can work on different stations, they can go in turret seats, but there's nothing. It's not full Multicrew yet.
Yeah.
So they had an expanded pilot role and an expanded turret gunner role, which will give those players, like a pilot and the gunner, kind of more to do and just kind of make the game more multiplayer and a lot better to play with people. And unfortunately, they've moved that off the roadmap, saying that currently it's outdated and does not accurately represent the work the team will need to complete. So we've removed it from the roadmap for the time being. You can expect a more accurate version of this card to reappear when the team has just cuts off from there. When the team has completed re-evaluating the work needed. That's exactly what they've said for both of the expanded roles. So, I mean, it makes sense as the game's evolved. That won't necessarily be, it would be outdated and not as accurate. So they've taken it off to re-evaluate and focus. So hopefully, that's going to be expanded even further. But again, it's just a shame to see it come off the roadmap. Yeah. Atmospheric combat has come off the roadmap as well. Zero G push and pull. That's a shame. That's quite an immersive piece where you can actually in zero gravity, you can kind of pull yourself across terrain. So if you're in a ship and there's no gravity on the ship, you can kind of pull yourself around the ship. NPC healing is another one. So that's not just NPC, that's also player-to-player healing as well. So they've removed that off the roadmap. Let's say you and I were playing Roost. You got shot in the leg. I could heal you using a med pen or something. But unfortunately, that's been removed. FPS combat improvements and polishing has also been removed. And so has the flight, AI improvements and polishing. They're just some that I've picked out. There's a lot more that have been removed in terms of like weapons, repair, refuel, restart, kiosks, all that kind of information. Commodity transfer timers, that's a big one as well. So that was originally, I buy a bunch of stock, then there's a timer for them to actually put the stock into the ship, which stops the trading aspect being the best way to make money, and the meta at the moment, it balances out the game with everything else. They've removed it. So for the next 6 to 9 months, trading is still going to be the best way to make money. But that's all the things, well, not all the things, there's a lot more. That's some of the things that have come off the roadmap. They have added stuff to the roadmap and moved a couple of stuff around as well. So what's been added to the roadmap is for Alpha 3.9, which will be released kind of late March, high-speed combat. So ship systems will suffer the consequences of travelling at high speed, restricting some of the options that players will have at maximum velocity, creating a vulnerability that will push players to engage at lower speeds. That's good. That will stop people just strafe running through. You're basically, if you're travelling at a high speed, then you'll be a lot more vulnerable in terms of engagement. So you need to engage at a lower speed. New targeting methodology, which is fantastic. Law system version 2, surrender. So you will have the option to surrender. Let's say you are a criminal and you get pulled over by the police, which happens quite a few times. If you have a bounty on your head, they will give you the option to surrender, in which you've got to put power down your ship and everything like that. And then it will go, you'll basically wake up in prison. So, and of course 3.9 is where the prison gameplay is coming into the game as well. So that's going to be a really nice kind of addition to the immersion of the game and everything like that.
Yeah.
Player interaction system improvement. So continue development on the interaction system that lets players select dialogue options, interact with props in the environment, and generally interact with the game. Some of the tasks included in this work will include providing player feedback for when items can't be used, adjusting UI elements to scale/place correctly with geometry, and bind commonly used actions to hotkeys. Yes, please.
Just
yes, please.
All of the yes.
It's for every single item, you have to look at it, and then whatever the first option is for that kind of interaction is always the one that you'll get. So if you're trying to pick something up, but it's the second or third option in the list, whatever the top option is, if you just press the button, it's going to do the first option, which is very frustrating. So you have to kind of go down the little list of things. But it's good that we're going to have that ability to bind keys. These are such simple things that I think the community have been crying out about. Ship AI 3D pathing, planet side, building a fundamental technology to allow AI-controlled ships to navigate in atmosphere. Immersion again. This is all down to immersion, ship AI 3D navigation, and weather locomotion. The player and other characters will show improvements in locomotion when moving in inclement weather. What they're also adding, so 4.0, which will be around about June, body dragging, and they're going to be reworking the ship HUDs. So, which is fantastic. I think with CIG at the moment, what they're doing is they're focusing on Squadron 42, their single player experience, more than what they are on Star Citizen as the game itself. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because Squadron 42 looks like it will be very good and a lot of fun. I think there's they're estimating it to be released, like as in episodically, in the first episode being end of this year. And what that's going to do is they're going to be able to kind of like harness a lot of that gameplay that's in that game and put that into the Star Citizen universe itself. Because, of course, they're all based across the same universe, but they may probably get more data out of Squadron 42. And Squadron 42 looks like it's going to be good. There's a lot of gameplay, and there's a lot of big actors in there as well. I mean, Mark Hamill is one of the characters in Squadron 42.
Yeah.
One of the main characters in Squadron 42 as well. For anybody that's interested in looking at some gameplay for it, I'll put a link down in the description. But yeah, that's kind of everything Star Citizen wise at the moment. I mean, it is what it is. You know, I'm just waiting for the carrot now. Tomorrow's February. I'm expecting it in probably about 3 to 4 weeks, and as soon as that happens, oh my god, it's going to be amazing. I can't wait for the carrot.
Are you a little bit excited?
I'm a lot bit excited because it's going to be amazing. Anything else from the two of you at all?
I mean, this episode seems to have had a theme this week of just nope, pretty much covers that.
Delays and Star Citizen, really.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, there is actually one more thing. So, I don't know if anybody's been watching me stream or if I've been saying it to you guys, but whenever I've been playing Dragon Ball Z,
yeah,
I've been complaining a lot about the loading screens.
Yes, you have.
I've been complaining a lot about the loading screens because they are just horrible. Apparently, I'm not the only one. And they've just put in a patch which massively improves the load times for those loading screens. Thank God.
What else was like that? Bloodborne.
Oh, there's nothing
We don't
worse.
talk about pre-patch Bloodborne. It doesn't exist.
Oh, there's nothing worse than travelling from a place to a place and getting a loading screen every 5 seconds. Especially when, like, the story of Dragon Ball requires you to be going to different locations during one subset of stories. So they'll be in one place, but something's happening in another place, so they've got to go to that place, then return to the original place that they went to then go somewhere different. All in the space of about 10 minutes of the game. You have about 7 loading screens in between that, which they go on for a long time. They're not removing the loading screens, but apparently they're making them quicker, which... Oh my god, thank you. Thank you. The loading screens have been ridiculous. Oh, but yes.
I don't know what you're on about. They haven't been an issue.
Hey, you're full of shit, mate.
If only you'd played them. But yeah, I'm so glad they've put a fix in. I'm so glad they've acknowledged that there was an issue and that they've put a fix in for it. It's still going to present with a loading screen, but well. I'm happy that I'm not sitting there for ages now. Because my god, did I do some complaining about that.
I'm sure you did.
Right. So, other than that, I think that is more or less it for this week, unless you guys have got anything else that you wanted to
I mean, key news this week was just the delays and removals.
Yeah. Leechy, anything from yourself?
No, not really.
No.
Don't spend £70 on a funnel.
Yeah. Oh, actually, how's your new steering wheel setup? Because I know that you bought a completely new setup and sold yours to Luke.
Yeah, very good. So, funny story, actually. So, my main issue with the pedal setup was that they're very top heavy. So, if you hit the brake a little bit spirited, you could, if you're not careful, you can tip the pedals over completely.
Oh.
Now, I've still got all the boxes for the entire setup in my room, just because I'm a lazy cunt and I haven't cleaned up yet. So I decided to go through the boxes and basically consolidate any spare screws, paperwork, and basically get everything together so that when I do do something with the boxes. I've got everything I need out of them first.
Yeah.
So that got me looking through the booklet, which is just a quick guide. The actual manual you got to look up online, but I ended up looking through the quick guide for the pedals, and it points out these. I was looking through the part list and everything that should have come with the pedals, and you've got your pedal extensions and your wires and all that malarkey. But there were these two little bracket-looking things, and I'm like, well, what the fuck? Because I was under the impression when I initially looked through the accessory box that came with the pedals, so it has this box that has your wires and your extensions and all that shit in there. I had a look, like, it was all bubble wrapped, so I had a look at these metal brackets, but I didn't think too much of it because in my head they were only needed if you were mounting the pedals to a proper rig, which I don't have yet. It's something that I plan on getting later on, but I don't have at the moment. So I didn't even bother to unwrap them from the bubble wrap. I just kind of like glanced at them and then tossed them aside. Well, as it turns out, they're not metal brackets for mounting to a rig. They're stabilizer feet, and they're for use when you're not mounting to a rig. And they stop the fucking pedals from tipping over. Having fitted those now, much better. Less tipping, more braking.
They actually did what you wanted.
Yeah, I'm there, and I'm like, a great pedal set, but little bit of a shame that they tend to tip over a lot. No, they provided me the fucking tools to not tip over, but I was a pleb. So having fitted those works a lot better.
There you go, kids. Make sure you read your manuals.
One thing I've just remembered, so I just brought up the article quickly to make sure I've got all the information correct again. But something a little bit excited for sort of sci-fi RPG fans and just general RPG fans in general. So back in April, Wizards of the Coast, the guys behind Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering and things like that, in case people don't know, they announced that they were teaming up and making a new company with the former BioWare creative director and the lead designer. So a bit more information has come out about that now. So we now know that two lead members of ex-BioWare are now heading a new development studio called Archetype Entertainment. Definitely a studio worth keeping an eye on, as these are the people who have previously made games like Baldur's Gate, Dragon Age Origins, Neverwinter Nights, and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. All are fantastic games.
Yes.
And this new team is being put together to make its first title, which is going to be a story-driven sci-fi RPG. So that is going into the works now by, simply put, a very, very well-made team, I'm sure, considering the lead director's previous works. And Wizards of the Coast, probably one of the perfect teams to work under, one of the perfect sort of publishing studios for them to be published by. So definitely something worth keeping an eye on. It'll be interesting to see what information we get out of Archetype Entertainment in the future.
I thought Baldur's Gate 3 was already being worked on.
It is.
Not by that team.
Not by that team.
Oh, okay.
Not by that team, no.
Interesting.
So obviously the rights of Baldur's Gate is completely owned by Wizards of the Coast. Baldur's Gate 3 is actually currently in development by the team who made what is the name of the game?
Dragon Age?
No. It's gonna really bug me when I look at it and realize how silly I'm being. It is being developed by the creators of, if I can find the damn game.
We'll be back after a short intermission.
Divinity Original Sin. There it is. So the Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2 team are the ones who are actually making Baldur's Gate 3. Funny story, after making the first Divinity Original Sin, they pitched making Baldur's Gate 3 to Wizards of the Coast and were turned down because, as Wizards of the Coast said, they were too green. They didn't have enough behind them. They kind of liked what they'd been doing, but they hadn't done enough to be trusted with such a high IP. And so they went off and made Divinity Original Sin 2, and then went back to Wizards of the Coast and were granted the rights to Baldur's Gate 3. So clearly, Wizards of the Coast were happy to see what kind of developers they are, and have given them that. So that's in the making. A very good trailer that we got for that, with the disgusting sights of the Mind Flayer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what sort of new kind of game we get out of Archetype, especially with it being sci-fi. Possibly could end up being a contender going up against Starfield.
I think Starfield would probably be out for quite a while before.
Oh yeah, it's just going to be out for a while, but there's plenty of games that have released a fair few years apart that end up being primary contenders to each other. I mean, look at Skyrim and Witcher 3.
True, very true.
Very, very, very different games, and great for their own reasons, and so always worth playing both of them. But they are very commonly pitted against each other, regardless of the years between them.
You make a very good point. A very, very good point. Okay, I think that's a good place to leave this episode then. Sorry, this one was quite a newsy one, with all the delays and not a lot of positivity for the first half. But yeah, we'll end it there, guys. So thanks everyone for watching again. Probably just me on my way to and from work as usual. But yes, we'll leave it there. So thanks everyone. Goodbye.
Toodles.